Hallå. Ja.
Jag vet inte om de här...
Nu är vi live.
Okay, it's like you can't speak if you don't have a slide. So quite. Okay, so great to see so many of you guys here. My name is Ebba. I'm head of creative at Jung Relations, and this is my colleague Nicolina.
Yes, I'm Nicolina Jonsson, and I'm a planner and PR advisor at Jung as well.
And Jung Relations, for those of you who don't know, is a PR agency and sort of a PR agency / advertising agency based here in Stockholm. And we went to South by Southwest this year to get some inspiration from different industries that are pushing the envelope in their respective industries. Because South by Southwest is a great festival if you want to be where the digital world merges with popular culture and society as a whole. It's held yearly in Austin, and Austin's slogan is "Keep Austin Weird." So this makes it like the perfect place for disruptive technologies, and people are very open-minded in this city. And the festival includes a music part, a film part, and an interactive part. We've been to the interactive part, so we're not going to talk about new films or emerging music, but about emerging technology. And at the interactive part, you can go to a trade show where countries show off their groundbreaking technology and what companies are doing now. There are a lot of speakers from different sectors that are speaking every day. I think we counted to, at like 11 o'clock one day, there were 30 seminars going parallel. So we have not been to all of them, but there are like, I don't know, over 100 seminars each day. And they have a startup accelerator also, where startups can come and pitch their ideas to really, really big investors and get feedback.
Yeah, and the festival spreads throughout the city, so a lot of brands are there to just market themselves and have a place. So McDonald's has a house, and Wired magazine has a house, and all of these brands just come together and just want to be part of this.
Yeah. So they come together with around 75,000 attendees each year. And it's not just companies, but it's also like a lot of representatives from the American government that are there also to see how they can improve the states. And this year, South by Southwest actually celebrated 30 years because it was founded in 1987. And to celebrate this, they actually had one of the biggest speakers ever, and I think he's the one who's going to be opening for us today.
We cannot solve the problems in government, and we cannot solve the problems that we face collectively as a society unless we, the people, are paying attention.
Right.
And in a age in which people are getting information through digital platforms, through the internet, where people's attention spans have shrunk, it is critical that all of you who are shaping this environment are spending time thinking about how are we getting people, how are we getting citizens engaged, and you yourselves have to be engaged and spend some time thinking about it. It doesn't mean you have to do it full time. It doesn't mean that you have to run for office yourself, but it does mean that whatever your field is, there is a way right now for you to engage and participate to take this democracy back in ways that we have not seen in a very long time.
Take this democracy back in ways that we have not seen in a very long time. So he really thought that this was the best place to call on technology industry to help solve so many of America's problems, such as upgrading outdated networks, help balance security and privacy, and also the FBI and Apple encryption dispute that's right now. So this is really a festival that's grown in importance and has really increased in its like global attendees also.
So listening to Obama, we can hear that it's been a very human-centric and individual focus this year at the festival, and also a human-centric approach to using technology to drive innovation and answer these big questions of the development into the future. And this perspective was not only shared by Obama, but with pretty much all the speakers at the event. And now we're going to do some name dropping, so bear with me. We have Pete Cashmere from Mashable. We had Google. We had J.J. Abrams, director of Star Wars. Hyperloop. We had Kevin Kelly from Wired. We had BuzzFeed. The U.S. Secretary of Transportation, North Face. Megan Smith, who's the Chief Technology Officer of the States. We have Slack. Regina Dugan from Google X. Mars One. Obama, of course, Under Armour, and SoulCycle. So this is just a selection of the seminars we attended.
So a lot of seminars, a lot of trends, a lot of companies. We've boiled it down to 4 big trends that we saw sort of cut through all the different seminars we went to, and we saw like examples of these trends in media and in fashion and in food and in transportation and all the different like topics that people were talking about. So we're going to walk you through trends like man meet machine, emo experiences, welcome to Nicheville, and with a little help from my friends. They don't say a lot to you right now, probably, but let's fill them with a lot of information now. So man meet machine, this trend is mainly about artificial intelligence and how it's taking over and developing so much quicker now thanks to big data. But people are scared. And just like Kevin Kelly, the founding executive of Wired magazine, said that in a few years we'll have artificial intelligence that can accomplish professional human tasks. There is nothing we can do to stop this. And it feels like one of the scariest sci-fi scenarios ever. You have Pepper the robot, which is a day-to-day companion that can actually read feelings and interact with you. Tomorrow, you're going to have to let go of your steering wheel because the car will drive itself to work. You have the Thai robot on Twitter. Did any of you guys follow that one? Yeah, so that was an IE experiment where they put a bot on Twitter and it was supposed to like develop feelings and start to talk to people and learn from what people were talking about on Twitter, and it turned into a racist, homophobic,
Hitler saluting.
Yeah. So they shut it down like after 20 hours or something. But then also you have the AlphaGo computer, which is a Google DeepMind experiment, which is a computer that is the first time has beat a human being in the really old Chinese game of Go. And what's so amazing about this is that you've had computers before that have won over people in chess, but chess is a lot of rules and different plays that you can learn. Go is purely based on intuition. So people were like really scared that computers actually could be that intuitive now. So we were talking about maybe like artificial intelligence really just has a branding problem. Because what if we call it artificial smartness instead? I mean, it doesn't sound as fun. It doesn't get your imagination going in the same way, and it's not human-like, but it's free of consciousness. And you have it today already. You have it in your calculators. You have it when you analyze data, and you have it like in your car because you have better car brakes. So if we want to like talk about artificial smartness, it's really about taking the technology we have today and just adding smartness and letting us human beings be what we are best, which is creative and emotional. So if we look about what products people are smartifying, you have the wearable segment. And Regina Dugan, who's the VP Engineering Advanced Technology and Project at Google, that's like the longest title. She said it's all about getting technology out of the way. Wearables in the future and today actually are not about like putting screens in your clothes. It's about making clothes that are connected, but that you can then just throw in the washer and that you don't have a screen to. So Google launched a product called Project Jacquard, which is really about like taking new threads that you can put in your jeans, so that now I can answer my phone just by tapping my pocket, or I can send a text by swiping my knee. Or you have the yoga pants that tell you when you're doing your, is it called downward dog? Yeah. Downward dog correctly. So if you're doing it wrongly, it will buzz and then you have to correct yourself. So this is really a way of making the clothes we wear smarter and giving something back to me.
So how can we add some smartness to our health, to our bodies? It's an ever hot topic and a mega trend that probably all of you here work with or are in connection with in some way. And we can track so much today, and people are already tracking their health by using these kind of activity bands and apps in many ways. And as we track everything, health will become a new form of currency. And Tim Irvine from Accenture Interactive said that healthy is the new wealthy. Being healthy will become being rich in the future, because it will get you so far. You will be able to get lower insurance fees, you will get better deals on all these services you need in your daily life. The next step is really just measuring not only this kind of shallow data that many are using today, but measuring your vitals on a deeper level. And you can see this little gadget here, it's called Scanadu, which is a startup that was founded through an Indiegogo campaign, which looked like something from Star Trek, and it was inspired by Star Trek. And it's a little gadget that you just hold towards your forehead for a couple of seconds, and it will tell you all your vitals in about 3 seconds. And using this data, the next step is getting personalized medicine. You will be able to, every day, if you have some kind of chronic disease, you'll be able to tailor your medicine on a daily basis to your specific needs. So, okay, so today I'm low on C vitamin, so maybe I have to increase my dosage of that in my pill. So that's like the future of medicine. And just taking this, just a small Swedish example of how this kind of thing could be just already today. We could see that ICA, one of the largest retailers here in Sweden, launched an app called Hälsorabatt last year, so health discount, where you took good healthy choices by exercising, you got more discount on your food. So this kind of healthy being the new wealthy, and as a health as a new currency, is already happening in small scale today in Sweden. And if we look at transportation, every year around 300 people die in Sweden in car accidents, and several thousands more are injured, and severely so. So maybe we're not so good drivers after all. Maybe there's a smarter way here as well. And most of you have already heard about self-driving cars. It's nothing new. But what was new this year at South by was that we're actually getting there. We're getting close. Volvo is actually launching next year the first consumer cars, self-driving cars. And so next year they will start, together with Trafikverket and the city of Gothenburg, they will start the world's largest experiment on public roads. So they will release 100 self-driving cars that will drive around Gothenburg. And as I said, that's really pushing it. And many of you already know about Google, and they're a bit behind in the development, but they're really good at pushing the envelope and just talking about these issues so the development gets going. And this will probably not happen, even though Volvo is introducing this experiment, this will probably happen incrementally, so step by step. And we can already see some of it. This is a picture from a Tesla car that's already kind of has taken over parking your car, so you're kind of leaving that part of your driving to the car. And we went to some talks where they discussed the kind of evolution of self-driving cars. So this kind of feature is the first step. Then you will probably let your car drive on the freeway, because that's the easiest type of driving. Then the car will probably take over when you're driving on public roads, and then eventually it will go into city traffic. So it will be a step-by-step process in giving over the responsibility of driving to the car. what's also interesting here is that it's not only the technology here, but the technology gets us thinking on how will this affect our surroundings, our cities. If we don't need parking spaces, if we have a self-driving car that drives us to work and then can go and park wherever it's possible, or maybe pick up other people, maybe you don't have to own your car. Maybe it's like an Uber, self-driving Uber all the time. And how will we build our cities? So there was a representative from LA, the city council, and she said that, well, 20% or 30% of LA's surface is parking spaces. What will you do with all that space if we don't have to use it for parking? So that has implications for so much more than just the actual person not driving the car.
I mean, this is a whole talk in
Yeah,
itself.
like we could talk on this forever.
And also we'll be seeing a lot about smarter efficiency and probably a lot in the workspace. How many in here use Slack at work? Yeah, like half almost, yeah. So this year they've invested $80 million in bot startups, which is robots that will like track your conversations on Slack and then provide you with project management skills. Like, for instance, if I start a project at work and I'm like, okay, I need somebody who's like really good at Excel because I've never worked in that, then the bot can help me and be like, oh, well, Nicolina spent 100 hours on Excel last year. She's the best one at the company because it's followed the progress and what productivity you've been putting into Slack. And Facebook Messenger also launched a prototype last year, which is called M. And this is more on the social side, so you can text them and be like, oh, where should I go? And she's like, well, you've been searching a lot for Thailand this year. Maybe you should go there, and maybe you should eat at this restaurant because it looks like all of your friends have gone there. And then she can book the trip for me. I'm just saying she, maybe it's a hen.
Yeah.
She can book the trip and then she can book the hotel or the restaurant for me.
All the smart robots are girls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So really we're going to see like artificial intelligence is going to help us become more effective. And in the future, we're probably going to be talking about, like, did humans used to do that stuff? In the same way that we, after the Industrial Revolution, we're like, wow, did humans used to do that stuff? And of course, we're going to see a change in the workforce, and some jobs are going to vanish, but new jobs are also going to like open up with AI. And a big task that they were talking about, like in the future, is like in your resume to talk about how good you are at working with AI and how well you can adapt to that sort of a technology. Moving on to trend 2. So now that AI can help us get smarter, let's focus on the more human side of things, which is emotions. Because, you can see that. We're all looking for emotional experiences, be it through machines, by connecting online, or by interacting with the brand. And in comparison to strategy and efficiency, culture and emotions will always be bigger and stronger drivers for us as human beings. Because when it comes to emotional experiences, it's not about eliminating the human being, it's about illuminating that which makes us humans, which is our emotions.
It's the last goodbye, I swear. I have no regrets
you the goosebumps, right? So this was the new ad from Under Armour with Phelps. And Under Armour is a company that was founded around creating the best exercising products. But then they really quickly changed. I mean, they still do great projects, but they understood that culture is the most important thing. And they talk a lot about how the culture has to be protected and it has to be curated to actually like help people create this emotional connection and experience to the brand. And they do a lot of digital innovations, like they just released the health box that you saw in a picture and when Nicolina was talking about health, which is to help you like track your eating habits and your exercise habits and how you feel every day. But that's not the driving force. The driving force is the emotion and the content that they create. And SoulCycle is another company that defines themselves as an experience company. It's actually just like a spinning class, but they have yellow bikes and they have like great instructors. But they focus so much on creating an emotional experience when you step into the room. They say that each SoulCycle should feel like the only SoulCycle. And they say that they're not competing with other gyms. They're not competing with other spinning classes. They're competing with every activity and experience you could have in a day. So both these brands are like huge in the States and are really going global. And that's because they've focused on emotional experiences. And on the tech side of things, immersive VR and VR is really where it's at if you want to create emotional responses. And there are really like three, types of VR that people are talking a lot about right now, which is presence VR, which is augmented reality. We saw the launch of the prototyped Google glasses a couple of years ago. Those were only prototypes, so that's why they vanished. But people really didn't understand what they were for because they didn't really help you. But in the future, we will probably see lots of exciting things about how we can add like a digital layer to our everyday lives here. So maybe it could be, for instance, the next time I go into ICA and there pops up a virtual assistant in my glass and she's like, "Hi, I'm your dietist today. Do you want me to guide you through our aisles? And I'll pick up some great stuff for you." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, guide me." And then I can walk along and have her like talking to me in the aisles. And then we have in the middle here, I don't think that you can see that photo so well. It's a girl wearing VR glasses in store. And this is like the low-end VR where you can put the VR glasses on and you're in a completely different world. And you see something in 360. You can swivel around like this, but you can't walk in the world. You have to stand still. But lots of brands are doing like campaigns around this type of technology today. And North Face was one example where they did North Face Summit Experience. So you could like experience extreme sports in the outdoors through the VR technology because they wanted you to come into the store, put the glasses on, and then want to go out again. And really the next step for VR is the one you see on the far right, which is room scale tracking VR, which is that I can put glasses on and hold things in my hands, and then I can walk around in the world, actually. And by doing this, they can sort of change the perspective in what I see. So I feel like I'm walking in a straight line, but actually I'm just walking in circles around in a little room. But that really makes a deep connection, and I can really step into another world and get a full story. But that also implies that for brands and for us, if we want to create a storyline in this type of world, how do you storyboard something in 360? Like a typical film and movie, it's like, okay, you look here and then you shift the camera, and me as a viewer, I don't have another choice than to just follow what you're filming. But if I'm in a storyline that's 360, I can be watching something over here and something else happens here. So it's going to be really, really hard to make that type of content, but also very engaging. And VR will probably also become the most social media. I don't know if you guys all have watched Star Wars. This is
Star Trek?
Tech. This is something called 3D hyperportation, which is made together with the HoloLens. But the news this year is that it's actually live streamed. So up in the left corner, you can see his daughter in the room, in another room, and here she is 3D hyperportated into his room. So maybe next year we'll just stay in Austin and we can like 3D hyperportate ourselves here and talk to you, which is really like cool if you think about it that way. And what they're talking about here is also when we really get the connection between people is when we get the eye contact. So if we can make 3D hyperportation and also get the feeling that you're actually having eye contact with this projection of a person, you can really get emotional connection through technology.
Mm-hmm. So, moving on to our third trend, which is welcome to Nicheville. And we have Philippe von Borries, who's co-founded Refinery 29, which is a big lifestyle platform in the US. It's here as well, but biggest in the States. And he says that niches are big, global, and more powerful than ever before. But why is this? Why have the niches become so important for all of us that work in branding or corporations or pretty much anything? Well, it's because of the millennials. And how many of you here like define you as a millennial? So not that many. So, and that's probably.
Do you guys know what a millennial is?
Yeah.
Oh.
And the problem is that usually you talk about millennials as people. Pretty much no one knows what a millennial is. You know, it's in BuzzFeed articles, but no one really knows. And some people say that it's people born between 1980 and 2000. Some say it's around 2000. But what if we stop thinking of it as an age group or like a generation and start thinking about it as a mindset? And this mindset is primarily driven by individuality, connectedness, and just a need for purpose. And maybe a few more of you would say that, yeah, individuality, check. Yeah, connectedness, I like that, check. And yeah, a need for purpose. That's probably more of you who would define yourself as millennials when you say it like that. And this mindset with a focus on self-expression combined with the possibilities that tech has given us to connect with other people that share our interests all over the world has enabled this kind of niche boom that we see today. And being successful in creating content or products for millennials demands an understanding for just their individuality and their need for self-expression and the need to connect with other people, primarily then through different types of social media. So if we look at kind of the niche evolution, we can see that a niche can be a really small community, but it can also grow to become a big global trend. And we can see here, it's the bronies. Maybe some of you know it. It's like men who loves My Little Pony, and they love to like dress up as My Little Pony. So it's like super, super niched. But through the internet, they have been able to find each other and created a really strong community where they've actually been able to affect the product development of My Little Ponies. So super cool. And then we have the next one, which is kind of tiny cooking. Also super niche. It's like creating like super small cups of coffee, and they're actually like cooking for real.
How many in here have watched Teeny cooking online?
Yeah, pretty many. It's like more who had than that had Slack. So it's many doing it, but it's even more people watching it. If you like Google YouTube this, like the clips have between like 200,000 and 30 million views. So it's a global niche. It's super many who are watching this, but it's still super, super niche. Mm-hmm. What's interesting to think about this, for me, kind of as a planner, is why are people looking at this? Why are we so fascinated about this? Is it because we're have a need in our kind of stressful life where we have like an attention span of 1 second? Is it that people are fascinated about this kind of meticulously focusing, creating these tiny things and really like giving it all your focus for maybe, 5 hours to create this little meal? Maybe that's the driver to why we're watching it, or maybe we're just shallow and think it's cool. If we look kind of at a bigger niche, you have anime, which is huge. It's been in mainstream media and digital media, and it's become a global movement spilling over in all these kind of other industries like different toys and clothes and everything. But it's still a niche, but it's a huge global niche. Going like one step further, we have kind of shoutcasting, where we have PewDiePie, who has the world's largest YouTube channel with like millions and millions and millions of views on his videos. And it's super niche, but imagine the reach or the following he has. And then the power in this global niche is incredible. So just like a little something we brought with us that kind of we will come back to, but when kind of trying to identify these kinds of niches, it's trying to think that revolution starts small. Nothing started like this. It all started pretty small. So when you as a company want to try to identify these, try to like find a few, and Ebba will talk about it a bit on the next slide, but try to place several different bets instead of waiting for the big wave, because everything is moving so fast today and there's so many different things going on. So if you're waiting, you probably want to miss your train, or it's going to be too expensive for you to kind of go on the train when it finally arrives. So try to be present in different places.
And a lot of the media companies were talking about this, like Refinery29 and Wired and also BuzzFeed, about how you can identify a niche and then grow together with it. As a brand or as a media company or anything else. So I'm going to take an example with nail art, because I know that. So you have to identify the niche, as Nicolina said, and nail art has been around for a long time, and it's an Afro-American expression that's been like really strong. But then suddenly there started popping up like lots of YouTube clips and do-it-yourself, and the nail salons started taking off. So that's when you should have sort of jumped on that ship. And then you want to add service, which is really tailoring content for that specific niche. And Essie was one of the first brands to be really, really good at this. On their website, they have lots of tutorials. They have talks about which colors are in seasons, how you make patterns. They have lots and lots and lots of content. And then when the niche grows a bit more, you want to give it a voice. You want to add personality. That could be starting blogs or adding ambassadors. And also here, Essie started the Nail Art Awards, which is a yearly held competition where they announce like the new Essie ambassadors for each year. But also you saw like media starting to pick up on this and creating articles around the lacqueristas, which are the nail art women of the internet, and how they became ambassadors not only for just nail art, but for fashion shows and became consultants to other beauty industries. And then last but not least, you want to go deeper. And this is to really make it personal on a personal level and connecting your niche to a global phenomenon and movement. So here we see like also media like Jezebel talking about how nail art is the last bastion of female-centric beauty. How nail art really is like tagging on to the feminism movement, because nail art is something women do for themselves and not to be seen as more sexy in the eyes of men. And also OPI, for instance, did a collaboration together with Look Good, Feel Better initiative that helps women that are being treated for cancer to feel better about themselves. So that's how you can really like grow from this niche movement to something really big together.
And then we have iterate or die. And iterate was, if I could say there was a buzzword for me at the fest at South by, it was definitely iterate. It was in every speech, more or less. And it's all about, doing something, daring to try something, daring to do it again and like change a bit, so iterate it, and then put it out again and learning by redoing and redoing. And this model is actually like BuzzFeed's model for creating content. So they start with creating something. So 100 things you didn't know you needed to know about something. And then they run data analysis on it, and they release 600 pieces of content every day, and they run data on everything and see what people click on and what they read and everything. And then they distribute it, and then they look at this data, okay, they learn, and then they adapt the present content and try to make it better, so more clickable, but they also create more content. So, okay, they see that, okay, these nail art videos are clicking so good. Okay, maybe we should have a nail art section. And they just move on, and just this goes on. And then maybe they see, maybe it's the nail art with fur that's like the stuff that people love. So we're going to create more videos on that. So you're constantly learning. And by doing this, you can also identify niches. So BuzzFeed actually do this to identify niches. So they see, okay, so suddenly people are clicking over here with these videos on maybe training or like training outfits. Okay, so maybe that's a segment. So maybe that's a niche. Maybe that's where we should put our effort to. But it's using this is also a way to kind of handle your fear of failure, which many companies are facing today. And I think many of you are like challenged with that every day. That it's like, oh, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't do it, maybe. And that's the whole thing I talked about earlier. Dare to place different bets and try to, okay, try some content, try different things. And then see, okay, this worked. Okay, so we'll do that, and we'll, that's how we can become better. And many of you are probably already doing that. For example, in your Facebook advertising, maybe you put on 2 different ads with 2 different images, and you see, okay, this clicked better in this target group, so we'll direct this message to them the next time. Or so that's just a daily thing on how you can use that. Yeah, we can move on to the next one.
Which is the last trend, so to say, that we're going to be presenting, which is a little help from my friends, because we're facing many global societal issues today. Civil engagement is really on the rise, and companies are getting involved. And at the same time, governments are doing what they can, but they're struggling with declining distrust from citizens and companies alike. So that's really, really why President Obama was at South by, like he said in the beginning. And he wanted to get people involved in how can we come together across disciplines to solve the big problems that we are facing today.
So these are a few of all the challenges that were topics or seminars on at South by. But what for me felt like the new thing was not just on the focus on how the private and public sector can work together, which was so prevalent both from kind of the governmental side but also from the private sector side, but also how these sectors can harness the individual's need for, so the millennials' need for purpose, but the engagement that people have in different topics, and how can these 3 actors or groups really come together. So if we look at the private sector, they've done some pretty cool stuff. We have, for example, Tinder. They saw that there were many people who started campaigning in front of now for the American election, and started to campaigning on their site. So people who said like, hello, how are you? And she's like, do you feel the burn? Donate to Bernie Sanders campaign. So people were using the platforms to campaign for their candidates. And this was happening on both the Democratic side and the Republican side. And besides just shutting those users off, Tinder really took to that and created this swipe the vote service where they ask you 10 different questions which you can just swipe yes or no to. So are you against gay marriage? Are you pro, drilling in Alaska? Whatever. So you can just do this pretty quickly, and then you get a candidate that kind of matches best with your choices. And what's interesting here is they also added a button that's where you can click to register to vote, because that's like really a problem in the States, that they're actually making it harder every year for people to vote. It's becoming more and more complicated. So for a private company to help people to vote is really like the two sectors coming together to kind of push one of this problem, which is the declining engagement in democracy. And if we see an example like Hyperloop, which do you guys know what Hyperloop is? It's Elon Musk's, so the founder of Tesla's new project to create a super fast train in a kind of a vacuum tube that's going to take you from LA to San Francisco in 30 minutes instead of 4.5 hours. And they're like really trying to make this happen. But what's interesting with this project is it has been realized with, as Dick Alborn said, that 50% of the ideas building this company has come from the outside. So it's through crowdsourcing. And engineers has actually been working for free because they are so passionate about using this new technology, pushing the envelope in transportation, and getting a more sustainable transport alternative. And then we just took this example, which is kind of fun, like Barbie. You've probably all seen the new Barbies who have different skin colors, are different sizes and different heights and different kind of ethnic looks. And this is an interesting take from a private company to kind of fight kind of the gender norms or the beauty standards that are prevalent in our society. You can say that maybe it's like 50 years too late, like they've already done like a lot of damage, but it's still good that they're doing it. And one who really pushed private companies' responsibility in taking on these challenges was Jacqueline Fuller, who's the director of Google.org, which is Google's kind of charitable arm of the company. So Google donates 1% of their profit to kind of philanthropic work each year. And she says if all American companies donated 1% of their profit, it would amount to $120 billion. And that's quite a lot of money if you want to make a change in the world and come together to solve these issues. Looking on like how the public sector can kind of push these global questions as well, we can see that they're really trying to up their game just by being prevalent at a tech festival. And it really feels that Obama and Megan Smith, who is the chief technology officer, really has taken to that tech and digitalization is the way to kind of handle a lot of these problems that we have. So inequality, the digital divide, the lack in education, and so on. So they're really focusing on it. And they actually already started something called the United States Digital Services last year, who started as the smallest department inside the White House, but in 1 year has grown to become the biggest. And it's kind of like a startup embedded in the White House, and they just had one mission, to make the American government digital. And they have been recruiting from the private sector, and they're really focusing on that. So recruiting from Facebook, Twitter, Google, and getting that kind of knowledge into the government. And Obama really focused on this, and he was like, okay, so you guys, you love startups and you like to invent things. So you could start like a little medical app or a health app by yourself. You can get some funding and probably it will fail in 1 year, looking at statistics. Or you can come and work for us and develop a health app that all users of Obamacare can use. Then you have power. Then you're reaching millions and millions of people and actually changing health. And this kind of trying to make working for the government sexy was really like a big topic in many seminars this year. And if we're looking at how we in Sweden have kind of taken to this, we have, our government has also taken in digital expertise, amongst others, Darja Isaksson, who's the digital expert to the government. And maybe you've seen this campaign. It's like on the billboards around the city now. And it's Stockholm Stad who has, they developed this app almost 2 years ago, and it's kind of a civil engagement app. So if you see something that you don't like in the city, it's a trash can or a light not working or something, you can just report it in the app. And by doing this, you're kind of harnessing the civil engagement instead of having people, calling and shouting and being mad. You can just do it in, writing complaint letters. You can just harness that engagement in the app and kind of come together to make the world a bit better or the city a bit nicer for the citizens in it. And just to finish off with this quote by Megan Smith, who said that we want to have an awesome government for the people and by the people.
Yeah, and that's really sort of democracy 2.0, where it's not about just exercising your right to vote, but also exercising your right to get involved in the government. So those were the 4 trends. Just to recap, it's man meet machine. It's how you can add AI and get smarter products that let people be people. It's about emotional experiences, how you can use tech to help people experience and express emotions. Welcome to Nicheville, how you can create content that taps into the need for individuality, connectedness, and purpose. And with a little help from my friends, you can change things at scale by working together. And so this is sort of what the future holds. It's here, it's incremental. And it's not late. It's not too late to jump on the train. And we would like to round off with some wise words from Wired Magazine's founder, Kevin Kelly.
We are just at the beginning of the beginning. In 20 years from now, we'll look back and say, you never had the internet in 2016. It didn't even exist. You thought you had it, but hadn't even really happened yet. Most of what's happened isn't really the important thing. And again, if you were to go 20 years into the future and look back and say 2036, and if you were to travel there and look at what the most important inventions in 2036, you would realize that we haven't invented them yet. They're not the things, they're not AI, they're not VR. They're things that have not even been invented yet. And that means that you have to invent them. That means that you're not late.
So you're not late.
Thank you.
Go home. Fix things. Develop things. Yep. Thank you.